And now, our feature presentation.
The best
in the world
is right here, right now.
Whether you like it or don't like it, pal, learn to love it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome.
All right, listen up.
Now it's our time to step forward. It's time to bring the NWA back into the spotlight.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Attention, everyone. Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
It's the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, DKM, and JCap.
We want to talk about Ring of Honor, and with everything that's happened recently in the Ring of Honor, I feel like the Alliance guys, and this is the first time that all four Alliance guys have been on at one time. This is earth-shaking, groundbreaking. We're going to talk about what's going on with Ring of Honor, and first and foremost, if you guys haven't heard the announcement, essentially what is happening is that the Ring of Honor has announced to its talent that everyone is now free to work anywhere without restriction, and that if they need to get out of their contracts, the management is willing to work with them to get them out of their contract. The other caveat to that is no contracts will be renewed at the end of the year, which is typically when they sign their talents, and that the last show of the year will be the final battle, aptly titled. And then after that show, the entire promotion will be on hiatus. Reruns will air on the Sinclair channels that it currently airs on. And they plan to come back sometime in April with a new reimagined, reinvented Ring of Honor. I know that DK and I and really all four of us have been talking about this. So we want to talk about it with you guys. And first and foremost, Jaden is somebody in the New Jersey wrestling scene, somebody close to Ring of Honor and the work that you do with Dr. Lawrence Zirconium and Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. Some of the talent that's appearing on your guys' show on Saturday are going to be affected by this. And could you tell us, from your perspective as working closely with a wrestling promotion like Dog, what does this mean for those folks in those wrestling promotions? And what does it mean for somebody like you who promotes wrestling?
Well, I'm not really the promoter. I'm more of the hands-on guy. But I'm the guy who's been in the business, so I know a lot of the wrestlers, personally. And there's at least three that I can think of, wrestlers from Ring of Honor that are going to be on this next Dog event on Saturday, which is not tomorrow. And I guess I'll see them there and ask them their perspective, from there. The only thing I'm not sure you are 100% correct from, I don't think it's exactly reruns are going to be showing. I have a feeling they have a lot of matches in the vault that they're going to be mixing in with some classic matches from like pay-per-views and big shows and stuff like that. And I understand the office is still intact. It's still a company. And from what I've gathered around, there's not going to be anybody wrestling for Ring of Honor exclusively. They're going to do a set of tapings and have whatever independent talent just happens to be available. And from what I understand, it looked like they might be working with some other companies too. Maybe the NWA, maybe Impact Wrestling, maybe AEW. I doubt MLW because they seem to be an island on their own. But, that's good. Maybe you're going to start seeing these talents branch out other places elsewhere. I heard already there's a large contingent that has recently signed with AEW in a big rumor. Uncle Dave apparently put that out there. But I guess it's good for wrestling and bad for the wrestlers. I kind of am in the mind that when it comes to the major league companies, there should be less of them because they're splitting. There's not enough talent or watering down rosters, having less and less good talent on all these different rosters. The NWA is currently going through it right now, in my opinion. There's not enough good talent out there to be able to sustain all that. So they may find some zirconium in the rough, as Dr. Zirconium would say. But there's not enough. That's why we have the Tyruses and the Mike Knoxes and the Melinas and whatever the cast off and used to be's are still out there. Maybe now we'll see like O'Shea Edwards. O'Shea Edwards is amazing. If you don't know him, look him up. And I think he'll be great for the NWA. I would love to see him maybe challenge for one of the championships. Joe Keys, who's on this next dog event, very, very, very talented. Eric Martin, Glassbur's own, very, very, very talented. Brian Johnson, he should be somewhere. Great promo, good wrestler. There's a lot of talent out there now that the NWA and MLW and Ring of Honor and everybody else not Ring of Honor, Impact can really take advantage of and maybe strengthen their rosters.
Kevin. Go ahead. I'm sorry, DK. You go right ahead.
Yeah, they are doing their TV tapings that were scheduled with the pay-per-view.
Okay.
And so they'll have a series of TV tapings that'll take them so far, and then they'll do a mix of stuff from the vault. Is what it sounds like to get them through to the next time they do a show. And here's the actual announcement, just in case, so people can hear how it's actually worded. Throughout the pandemic, our top priority was to keep everyone healthy and safe. And despite not producing any live events over 18 months, we were able to keep everyone fully contracted. We now find ourselves at a time where we need to make changes to our business operations and are planning a pivot for Ring of Honor with a new mission and strategy. The year will accumulate with the final battle in December, and we'll be taking the first quarter of 2022 to work internally to reimagine ROH. ROH has the most dedicated fans in the industry, and we appreciate their loyalty and patience as we reconceptualize ROH. We anticipate returning to live events in April for the Supercard of Honor with a new fan-focused product and provide a unique experience for a wrestling fan. And one thing I want to say, I listened to an interview that Pro Wrestling Insider on their elite side did, and it was with Joe Koff, and he makes it sound like there are no changes in the front office. Hunter Johnson's going to continue to be the booker. Doesn't sound like any executives are there. That basically they've gone 18 months without making money, and now they got to do something. And so, I would be careful listening to anybody, be it Meltzer or even some of these websites. I think they're looking at lots of things, even some of the credible websites, because I think they're looking at lots of things. I don't think anything's locked in yet. I think it's kind of foolish to go, oh, well, these are the plans, when they're taking 3 months off to try and figure stuff out. So that's going to be my one caution. Hey, every rumor that's out there now may come true. But if you listen to the Joe Koff interview, you can tell that he wants things to only change as much as they need to.
Now, Kevin, out of the four of us, you've most recently competed inside of a ring. You know what the in and outs of being a pro wrestler are. I know this is a scary time for wrestlers who recently have lost their jobs, but what does this mean to you? What do you think about this?
I really think it's and y'all saw my message in the chat, that I really think a lot of it is what part of what I'm calling the AEW effect. you're starting to see a vacuum happen where the majority of, again, the money is starting to flow towards two major companies, which is not a bad thing. It's better than one. But the reality is that the type of production, the type of money that it takes to run a legitimately large professional wrestling organization, given the times that we're in, there's only so much to go around. I know that sounds like somewhat kind of like, what would you say? Like, I'm not trying to be negative about that. I just think that there really is only so much money that is there, and so many decent TV spots that are there that are going to keep a product that is not performing in front of crowds, is not really, you know, I tried to watch one of their shows a couple months ago, and it was bad. So again, I think one of the harsh realities is that the on-air product is really not that great right now. That doesn't mean that there's not talent in there. There's talent in the NWA. We complain all the time about the way the talent's being used, but it's not. That doesn't mean that there's not talent in the company. But if I'm Ring of Honor, man, I think the first place they should have started with the executives. That should have been a place they really did think about it, and really think about the booker. I don't know any of these people, but so again, I don't have a horse in the race. Maybe all of them are great people. I don't really know. That's not how business works. It's not about how cool you are. It's about how good you are at your job. And you know, my mom, believe it or not, is a Ring of Honor fan. And even her, you know, she hasn't talked about Ring of Honor in over a year. And so again, I think a little bit of it is the AEW effect, is that a lot of the wrestlers that probably would be on the main event of Ring of Honor, that might be drawing a lot of interest on Ring of Honor, are now wrestling on AEW. And so again, you're looking at you're seeing the largest company pulling a lot of the excess talent to it. And again, I think that's part of the play. That's part of what they're trying to do. And again, they're not going to come out there and say, hey, we're trying to bankrupt all the indies and become the next big thing. But the reality is that they are. And they want to become the next big thing. And that's just part of what they're trying to do, is they're doing everything they can to compete. And I think it's really hurting companies like ROH. And again, there's probably more. This is probably not one thing. It's probably a big combination of things. But I also think, it's a shame. I mean, Shane Taylor is a friend of mine, and he's got a lot of momentum going with Ring of Honor right now. But I think a lot of these guys will land fine, because I don't think they were necessarily making a ton of money for Ring of Honor. And so it's not like the indies won't provide them the opportunity to keep making their money. And the truth is that, if you're an independent wrestler and you're not making over 6 figures a year doing your job, you need to have a side hustle anyway, because you got to pay the bills.
Well, and the thing that keeps going back to me is, like, how easily could this have been the National Wrestling Alliance? We talk about the NWA. This is our bread and butter. But similarly, they went through the global pandemic, and they went through this pandemic with the inability to create new content. We saw how terrible Carneyland was. They had the inability to draw an audience. Their Patreon helped support the show for the promotion for a bit. Eventually did not work out. And it's they had high-end contracts too. I mean, they had Eli Drake, they had James Storm, they had Nick Aldis, they have a couple of other guys on the roster currently. And this could have very easily have been the NWA. The NWA decided to take a knee and not promote any events during this time. Ring of Honor continued to provide work for their talents, but without a live audience. And
they did go through a period where they were shut down completely.
Right. As everyone was.
Right. I mean, they did go through a period where they were shut down completely. But look, you look at two promotions that, quote unquote, did everything right for the pandemic era. WWE took a lot of criticism for releasing people and record profits and all that stuff. But, New Japan, they weren't running shows, but they were still paying their contracts. Ring of Honor was kind of the same thing. And then, unlike other places that did bring fans back, Ring of Honor never, I mean, I think they did for a pay-per-view, but outside of that, you know, they didn't bring fans back at all. And, you know, both those companies have been suffering and have been having a hard time financially. And, you know, I'm not trying to make a moral statement out of it one way or another, but ultimately you got to make money. And I think we all see what happens when you don't.
Well, and then, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did want to say a few other things too, because when we look at the direction that Ring of Honor was heading prior to the pandemic, there was a lot of excitement because of some front office changes. And I know, like, look, we shouldn't bring up the boogeyman's name, but Marty Scurll was set to be the head booker of Ring of Honor. They put him in that position. They took Delirious out of that spot, and it was supposed to be Marty Scurll guiding that ship going forward. And there was a lot of excitement about that, and a lot of people were happy about that. Of course, that didn't pan out, and it's probably for the best that it didn't because of all the allegations that came out later with Marty Scurll. But that, I mean, they showed you in 2019 that they weren't satisfied with what they were getting in terms of the storytelling that they were doing, and they made changes only to go right back to Delirious once Marty was no longer a part of the company. To me, that's a little bit telling too, that they went right back to Delirious. And I'm not trying to badmouth Delirious. I don't really know the guy. I don't know what angles he's booked and what he hasn't booked, but apparently they tried to make a change in that direction.
I know Delirious. He's a
Delirious has been in charge since Adam Pearce left. Yeah. So all the success that they had after Adam Pearce left, and they had quite a bit, that was Hunter Johnson, Delirious, whatever you want to call him. And so, you know, like a lot of people, and in Joe Kopp, I don't remember his exact comment in the interview, but he kind of admits that ROH blew it in allowing the creation of AEW. And he almost sounded like that could have been their opportunity. And I don't remember his exact words, but the impression I got was that he was saying that they blew it, that could have been their opportunity. And that was probably their high point. And then when Cody and all that talent left, boy, things got bad. Now, when they came back and they were doing the Pure tournament worked well in the empty arena.
Right.
But when they started going back to wrestling, you'll notice they would still do a lot of Pure matches. Your tag team matches, whatever. But when they started going back to trying to do the storylines and interference and people coming down and beating each other up and everything like that, that doesn't work in an empty arena.
No.
Because you don't have the crowd there getting into it. Jaden, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I've been watching Ring of Honor, and it's on local television. It took a while to find on Philly stations because even though they were based out of Philly for a while, they didn't have a station that had Ring of Honor on there. But I remember when they had a crowd, and this crowd was so quiet for most of the time anyway, unless they were trying to put themselves over. It really didn't seem that much of a difference in the empty arena. It's just, they got good wrestling, but the Philly crowd especially, and the Ring of Honor crowd, they're very, how do I put this? They're very not exciting. They don't really get super into it unless it was Danhausen. And they seem so often, those type of crowds, they care more about putting themselves over or getting excited about what they're doing than what's going on inside the ring. So I guess I really didn't notice that much of a difference with the silent crowd. The commentary, I think, was a little bit different because it was a lot more hushed in the silent buildings. They were more like a golf commentators instead of wrestling commentators. It was too quiet. But the actual fans, there wasn't that much difference.
Hey, I want to get to some of the comments in the chat because we've been missing on some of them. But we are an interactive program who love our fans. But Jody points out this may sound harsh, but as soon as AEW formed, ROH feels seems already to have served its purpose and lost its meaning. And I think that was a little bit what Kevin was getting into. What would Luthez do? Agrees with Doty. James says ROH paid everyone, even the per match guys during all of this. Dave Scooby, been to a few ROH events in Philly and they only had about 300 to 400 in attendance, while MLW and Battleground had 800 to 1,000 at each of their events. I'm unfamiliar with Battleground. Doty, Carneyland dead more because of Lagana's departure, which is probably true, but it sucked all the same.
True.
James, I went to many ROH shows. One of my favorites was the Boiling Point pay-per-view here in Rhode Island back in 2012. Kevin Steen was on the card. Doty, ROH, glorious work with New Japan Pro Wrestling during 2016, but also feels it hurt ROH in the long run. Their guys mostly lost, I think, from the New Japan guys. And when New Japan leaves, then, they're left with the losers. James, they had the elite on their payroll and allowed them to leave by lowballing their contract renewals, Bully Ray said. Not that I trust Bully Ray, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Be careful mentioning Bully Ray. Somebody might get mad at you and snitch to you on Twitter or something like that.
I don't care. I was never a Bully Ray fan. I was never a Dudley fan. I'm sorry, people, but that may be sacrilege or whatever. But I never got the Dudleys and never liked them. Terry says Barry Vanilla. I guess we're talking about probably ROH Stan style. And another reason why interpromotional work with New Japan or generally a promotion much bigger than yours, probably not always a good idea. And I think, I'm going to segue that into the Impact thing really recently. Impact AEW partnership, working agreement, open forbidden door, whatever you want to call it, supposedly ended at the last pay-per-view. And it was noted that the Good Brothers weren't on Dynamite Wednesday. And, there's a podcast out there that made it sound like, it helped Impact some. It helped Impact some. They left a lot of stuff on the table. Impact had some of its lowest ratings during the time frame. They got the initial pop with Kenny, and then after that, their ratings plummeted, and they went through some of their lowest ratings that they ever had. And look, that was never about helping Impact. That was about AEW being able to get Kenny Omega over by giving him another world title and then let them use the Good Brothers. That was all that was ever about. So all you people that keep talking about partnerships, no. They aren't for the good of everybody.
Well, there's a difference between a partnership and basically like we're the A team, you're the B team, and let's get that established. And that's what AEW would do.
But
they were establishing that they were the bigger company.
The reason the NWA ended the relationship with ROH the first time was because they basically realized that they weren't helping the NWA at all. And it was that ROH is, we're the A team, you're the B team, and, we're doing this to our advantage, not to help you. And, hey, look what happened. So, and then I also want to bring up real quick, let you guys get in there. They're not the only ones that are revamping themselves. MLW has basically said, we're not doing the long 3-4 hour burn out the crowd shows anymore.
No.
Where I guess they had 15 matches on one show.
That's a bit much.
I mean, that was much even back in the Crockett era days, before TV. in Texas, man, if you had 5 matches on a card, you had a normal card. It was only super cards that you got up into 7 or 8, 9 match cards. But, they cut 3 people who aren't anybody of notoriety or anything like that. And they'll probably cut some more along the same lines. People who probably aren't, big. But, Kurt Bauer has said, we're not doing these large shows anymore. We're not doing these large tapings anymore. And, if that means fewer people get on the show or, are booked, then so be it. So, people are now having to pay the consequence of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's part of it too.
And so, they're saying we have to make money, which has always been Billy's idea from the start. Yeah. Sometimes to his detriment. But this is why you always got to be careful. We'll go, well, he's a millionaire. Yeah, you know why people are millionaires? They don't waste their money.
One thing I do want to talk about too is I was looking at the list of names who are currently involved in Ring of Honor. Some of them are more recent than others, but there are 54 names of active roster talents on their card, and that's not including guys that have showed up like Homicide or Chris Dickinson. That's talking about guys that have been there for a while. So I'm not going to go through every name, but names that stand out to me like Angelina Love, Bandito, Bateman, the Beer City Bruiser, Brody King, Brian Johnson, Dax Draper, Dalton Castle, Delirious, Dragon Lee, EC3, Flamita, Flip Gordon, the Briscoe Brothers, Jay Lethal, Jonathan Gresham, Kenny King, Mandy Leon, Maria and Michael Bennett, Mark Haskins, Matt Taven, Miranda Elise, PJ Black, PCO, Ray Oris, Rhett Titus, Rush, one of my favorites, Sessions Moth Martina, Sumi Sakai, Slex, Silas Young, Shane Taylor, Tracy Williams. That's not nothing. That's a pretty solid roster. And when you talk about those folks are going to be injected into free agency, and a lot of these guys, it's going to be great for them. Somebody like Dragon Lee, besides working dates for the Mexican Lucha Libre promotions, he'll probably land a lot of dates with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I think I saw that Bandito's already got dates with Game Changer Wrestling. Some of these guys will get drafted to AEW. They will get signed. A guy like Brody King, I think, ends up in AEW. But some of these guys, this is it for them. There is no landing point for them. No disrespect intended, but world famous Cheeseburger isn't going to get a spot in the NWA. Not going to land on his feet with the WWE. This is it. So, it is kind of a sad day when it comes to that, but it's also, we have to look at it as, the business could only support itself for so long. Ring of Honor did the commendable thing by allowing its talents to still receive paychecks and continue to receive paychecks during this global pandemic. But, it's to their own detriment that it caused this whole thing to kind of fall apart.
And what makes this a really bad time, and I kind of like to get Kevin and Jaden's ideas on this, is this comes after they've revamped NXT.
Yeah.
To where, before NXT would snap up a lot of these talents, but not right now. They've rebranded. They basically have stated they're not interested in finding indie people, especially older indie people, and they want to build their people from the scratch. And they've got the Vince McMahon, Billy Corgan thing. They like big guys, well-built guys. And so, and then, we can even transition this in with talk about the NWA and who would bring in. Jay and I were talking. Jay was saying, somebody like Mike Bennett, or I can't remember who the other guy was off the top of my head.
Mike Bennett was the first guy I thought of. Brody King was the second guy I thought of.
You mentioned a third one because what I remember about him was maybe it was Grisham. I remember the two. What? EC3. And I pointed out that EC3 and now I forgot who I said. Bennett. EC3 and Bennett are both small guys, and I don't know, they're not in the typical Billy mold. And so I don't know how much interest the NWA would actually have in them. And so I don't know. I guess I'll start with Jaden. What are your thoughts on the fact that, there's fewer places because even NXT isn't snapping people up anymore. And not all these guys fit what is wanted out there right now.
It sucks for the wrestlers. It really, really does. Again, I know a lot of the wrestlers who work for Ring of Honor, very nice guys. Some of them are assholes, but most of them are really nice guys. And they deserve better. But again, I'm at the thing now where AEW is like the WWF of the 80s. They're picking talent out from everybody now. They're taking talent from the WWE. They're taking talent from Ring of Honor, taking talent from Impact. That's the new territory system, I guess. And these territories just aren't able to survive now with that situation. As for the Friend WA, where only friends wrestle for Billy Corgan, they should really pick up a lot of this other talent because there's some big guys in Ring of Honor too. And honestly, EC3, he's no smaller than Eli Drake was. He's about the same size. But they can have some really good, talented wrestlers to get rid of some of these old dinosaurs and cast off some used-to-bes that they're using now. Maybe get some fresh talent, make the company seem exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think EC3 is. I really feel like WWE kind of missed on him a little bit. To be honest, I felt like he's kind of a great fit for them, but my guess, I'm just going to guess this, that he might be a locker room issue more than anything. And again, that may not be something that shows itself in, maybe not shows itself in the literal locker room, but it might show itself in terms of how easy he is for promoters to work with. And so again, I think he's a top talent. I think he's great. I think he'd be a great pickup for anybody. And I feel the same way about Bennett. I think, again, both of these guys are like, prototypical type heavyweight wrestlers. I know they're not huge, but, there's a lot of guys right now having success in the NWA that aren't huge. La Rebellion, his first ones that come to mind, the Pope. The entertainment value is there, especially when you talk about EC3 cutting a promo. He's really good on the microphone. So, again, I think there's opportunity, but again, I think did somebody say the Friend WA? Is that what they said?
Yeah. I said the Friend WA. That's what our new name. I just coined that. Make sure it's on a t-shirt, Jay.
Yeah, I think that's actually the what's gonna ultimately be the issue. Why, and like I go back to with the NWA, I mean, this is like Billy's like weekend plaything. It's not. That's why he doesn't want to spend too much money on it. And I think ultimately he really doesn't care what anybody thinks, because if he did, the show would be different. But I would like to see some of this talent end up in the NWA, and I think some of it will. But I still think they're going to have their core group of wrestlers that they're going to continue to push, which some of them I really like. So I'm okay with that. But I would like to see an influx of some of this talent. But ultimately, like, I know it sucks. I know a lot of people are getting to live their dream right now and that sort of thing, and this is probably the end of the road for them. But that's also part of that's part of the deal, man. I mean, if you're a fringe talent and you really don't have what it takes to go past a certain level, I can speak from this personally. when you get to a certain point, that's as high as you're going to get. And you know what? Enjoy it. Enjoy what you had. Take the bookings while your name's still there. And I think the indies are going to survive, because I think that's actually one area that is not necessarily threatened as much by AEW. So again, I think that I think this will actually ultimately work out for the indies, especially for the indies that are local to some of these guys that may actually reside in those areas. I think the top guys will all end up at a bigger company. I think the mid to lower tier guys will just help bolster some of the independent rosters in that area, which is not a bad thing at all. I'm sure Jaden won't mind that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Dr. Zirconium. I mean, he's already talked to a few of them. It's funny how when they were working for Ring of Honor and he contacted a couple of them, they weren't seeming very interested. But now, that's because there's an event coming up this Saturday, which is not tomorrow. There seems to be a lot of them seem to be texting Dr. Zirconium right now and looking for work. And there's some real talented guys out there. Another good one who I think should possibly be in the NWA because he had a cup of tea with him in the past. Rhett Titus, another really good high quality wrestler, and he can make it anywhere. I know for a fact he's worked for Dog multiple times in the past. He'll probably be back there soon, and that makes Dog better. That makes all the indies around this area much better. And some of these guys come from other parts of the country. That'll make that part of the world better, or that part of the country better. It'll trickle down, and you'll see the big companies get better. It sucks immediately, but for the long run, it might be best for the business.
At the end of the day.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to throw one quick thing. You're not going to get a whole lot of cry 2 tears in a bucket from a guy who did most of his career with one major company out there that was really paying wrestlers, and now you've got 4 or 5. Yeah, you know what, guys? You had it good. If you're complaining right now, then honestly, you have no perspective or no sense of history.
If I were the NWA, I'd look at some of the guys, especially if some of the rumors are true about them maybe looking at, some stuff for some of the smaller gentlemen out there in the business. But I would probably look more at the women to kind of fill in. I mean, if you have Mickie James and they're putting together some women's shows and they're putting together some stuff, I mean, we all know what's happened with Kylie Ray. She may not be cut out for the business. I've actually enjoyed her, but
what do you mean?
Kylie Ray's she's basically gone back on hiatus because of her anxieties and stuff like that. She's pulled off of shows and all that. So it's not the first time, I don't remember who she left actually. Maybe it was ROH or Impact under a similar thing not long ago. When she came back, she kind of came back from the NWA and some of the other independent promotions. And we said then that, that might be better for her because it's not, one of the advantages of only taping a few times over the course of several months might work for her better, but apparently it hasn't. And look, I'll put this out there. I suffer from anxiety. I take medication for my anxiety. And if, public service announcements, if you have issues like that, go see your doctor. That's exactly what I did. I went, my wife had actually set up an appointment for something else, and I went in, I said, yeah, I'm not really that worried about that, but let me tell you about some issues I've been having. And, we talked, and he started me on a low dose medication, and he asked me about 3 months later if I want to try and wean off of it or not. And I said, no, I love it. It makes me feel like me, and that's what I wanted to feel like. He said, then we'll keep you on it. So, do away with stigmatism, take care of your mental health as much as your physical health. So that's my public service announcement for this show. But that being said, I look at somebody like, Quinn McKay, who, has just got that dorky adorableness and very green, but I think she could, kind of fit in some of that Kylie Ray mode, not necessarily as the wrestler, but as, just kind of that zany character. Mandy Leon, they had several people in their tournament that I think that, could fit. The NWA Mickey James wants to do a women's wrestling show. I think they can look at ROH talent. I don't think that's it's not Impact talent, but I think it's a good place to, look and sit there and go, hey, and bring back the Free Babes because everybody loved them and you guys were idiots for not booking them for more than a game. So that's my second public service announcement.
So
okay.
Tag me in. Let me chat you guys up on this. So a couple of things that I've been thinking about over the last few weeks, actually not last few weeks, last few days, because this was just announced, 2 days ago, a day ago. One point is, if you guys know your pal Jay, I'm a Dave Marquez guy, have been for quite some time. His post recently to all friends and associates who were affected by the Ring of Honor decision today, please know that you're welcome anytime with me. I don't have Sinclair money, but I have plenty of work, so take care and keep in touch. I think that was great for two reasons, because one, I know for a fact, I know for secondhand, a guy like Mike Bennett was waiting for something to happen last year when he was released from the WWE. It was the money he made in wrestling last year came directly from his work with United Wrestling Network, whether it be the Primetime Live episodes. I guess that's where he was featured predominantly. And since then, Mike Bennett, although contractually obligated to Ring of Honor up until recently, had made appearances for the United Wrestling Network in Championship Wrestling from Atlanta, as well as Primetime Live pay-per-view in the finals. The thing that's going on in the world of wrestling is, there's two really big wrestling promotions, maybe three if you count Impact in the United States. But there's also a bevy of indie promotions that are starting to grow. We're talking about promotions like Game Changer Wrestling. Despite what you think about that promotion as a whole, between the Big Gay Brunch with Effie, or the Joey Janela's Spring Break, or Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, these shows are starting to garner interest. And Game Changer Wrestling, with that feud with Nick Gage and Zack Ryder, really kind of brought some attention to that promotion. That promotion is now starting a Los Angeles affiliate, as well as they recently did their Bloodsport shows out here in Southern California. They're going to need bodies, and like I said, Bandito's already signed on for some of these matches. Besides Game Changer Wrestling, then there's New Japan Strong. New Japan Strong is using some of these guys like Brody King, Tyler Bateman, Chris Dickinson, Filthy Tom Lawler. These guys are now part of that New Japan Strong show, and those guys came from elsewhere, and those shows are happening more and more. They're not just doing one-offs here, one-offs there. They're literally touring. I'm going to be at a New Japan Strong show on November the 14th, November the 15th. And it just shows that these promotions are starting to come back up. And again, when you talk about the United Wrestling Network, they have 3 different areas that they're taping for. And then they technically do the weekly pay-per-views, the monthly pay-per-views with Fight TV, where they're bringing in talents from AEW, where they're bringing in talents from across the country. And then promotions like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, who's always been kind of like a all-star home for good independent talent. Like, now they have less ambiguities, less hurdles to jump over to bring in some of these talents who've been, working for Ring of Honor. So in some ways, this might be very, very good for independent wrestling. I don't remember who said it. It just might not be very good for the wrestlers themselves in the interim. But, being able to work more dates and knowing their own value and not working for handshakes and hot dogs certainly can put them in a position where they can be probably doing better business for themselves by working those independent dates. And Kevin, what do you think about that?
No, I agree. I think it this is just the nature of business. I think if we just step out of the wrestling side of it and just thinking about business, I mean, businesses shut down and start up every day. Independent wrestlings is much more like your mom and pop business, and it's always nice to see them benefit from from situations like this. People always will land. The good ones will land somewhere. I've been talking about this for a while in terms of just AEW and the way that things have been kind of trending with them. And, you're going to hear a lot of 10, 15 years from now, you're going to hear a lot of people being like, we could have been we could have been AEW. That could have been us. Just like all the old territory wrestling guys say, oh yeah, well, we could have been WWE if we did this or that. And you're going to hear a lot of that. But what we're looking at is really and truly the effects of a once-in-a-lifetime event in terms of the pandemic. And really, like DK said, the after effects of that is one area. The other area is that Ring of Honor really hasn't been that great for a little while. They've been all right, but they haven't been that great. And I think they're also hurting a little bit, not from a couple of things. It's just it's a double thing. But here's the other thing, just throwing it out there. Ring of Honor is not shutting down.
No, and that's the thing.
They're not hanging it up. And I think in a way, they're doing this. They're making this move so that the company itself can survive and maybe thrive in the future. And remember, we all know how Ring of Honor didn't start out giving wrestlers contracts. Ring of Honor started out with a very pure concept of just putting good wrestling together. And when you look at a place like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, you see that same model there. And so again, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing because they're doing what they've got to do to survive. They're putting the brand first, and I think that's just the nature of the way things go. And I think I'd like to think that they'll land on their feet, and this will actually work out best for them as well. So I think hopefully it works out great for everybody involved. There's always casualties in these situations, but we all know that if you're good and if you're determined, you'll land on your feet somewhere.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of the same people wrestling for Ring of Honor that are currently wrestling for Ring of Honor. Like Kevin said, he goes about the contracts. ROH started out with basically the champions had contracts, and the idea was don't go to a big promotion and leave me stranded for a champion.
Yeah.
And so that, I think when WWE started picking up so many indie people and stuff like that, then the counter is, oh, well, we'll offer you a contract. So don't go to WWE, don't go to TNA, we'll give you a contract and guarantee you money here. And
DK might have picked up on that. That's a good pickup there, DK.
So, and I'll let you expand on it, Jaden, because that's really all I have to say.
That is a good pickup, because right now the NXT, they're not using a lot of these indie guys that are big that they were pushing. So maybe soon they're going to be released. Maybe that's the next cost-cutting measure that the WWE sells out to NBC or Fox or Disney or whatever they end up selling for. That brings a lot of extra wrestlers. AEW can't sign them all. No. Impact Wrestling can't sign them all. Nope. And now that the Ring of Honor's not even signing them, maybe they can start using some of those indie darlings that are coming back to the indies, start working for spot shows and TV tapings for the Ring of Honor. Maybe we'll start seeing some of those guys trickle back down and rebuild Ring of Honor up. I mean, Ring of Honor was best when it had a lot of great wrestlers that were from all different places just kind of doing their thing. And we've seen actual real dream matches. There's no real dream matches in Ring of Honor anymore because everybody's under contract and they've done it all. Now you might see matches that you weren't going to see before using wrestlers from the WWE, and maybe they'll let some of the AEW guys go. They get tired of not being featured and not putting on TV. Maybe some guys from Impact will, look to do something else. So that actually might be a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, like a guy like Brian Cage is not happy with where he is standing currently on the AEW roster. And could you imagine where, there might even be a bidding war when he gets out of his deal with AEW if that happens. But, guys,
I don't think you'll see Brian Cage in WWE, just to throw it out there.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Hey, we're up against it. We've got about 8 minutes to the hour. That would be 2 hours, which is too long for any podcast. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. But thank you for joining us for this conversation about Ring of Honor and some expectations that the Alliance guys have. And hopefully you guys have similar expectations, and maybe we'll see some interesting things come to fruition with all of this. Jaden, I know that your guy, Dr. Lawrence Draconium, is putting this event on Saturday, October 30th in Glassboro. You want to throw out one more cheap plug before we go?
Yes, this Saturday night, which is still not tomorrow, at the MaxFit Sports Center, located at 240 Delsey Drive South in beautiful uptown Glassboro, New Jersey. Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators returns to the MaxFit to bring Glassboro's only wrestling promotion back to the glory days and South Jersey's #1 wrestling promotion, back to the gloriness of all old school professional wrestling, and you get to see it live. Only $15. The main event is Ray Jazz defending the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators Heavyweight Championship against former champion Dirty Money. You got a sub-main event as the WWGP champion. Chris Steeler defends against the big bad kaiju himself, O'Shea Edwards. There's going to be 9 matches, which is a little long for a dog card, so hopefully it doesn't become a big marathon taping like MLW does. But you get to see that for $15. You could buy the entire chair, but you're only going to need the edge of the seat, that's for sure.
And Kevin, you used to work, or you have worked for Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. If folks want to follow you on the socials or see some of your old matches, how can they do that?
Yeah, you could actually see my dog match on YouTube if you were to Google Kevin Douglas versus Sebastian Cruz. There's also a heck of a promo that I did for them as well. My wife absolutely loves it. So yeah, you can definitely go onto YouTube and check out some of my matches. If you wanted to just Google Kevin Douglas Wrestling, or you could go to my channel at Kevin Douglas 247. If you want to follow me on social media, it's Kevin Lee Frazier, just like on the screen, Lee. I'm not huge on social media these days. I mean, I do more retweeting per show than anything, but again, I do interact and I do respond to comments and messages. So would love to hear from some of you guys.
How about you, DK? How can they follow you on the socials?
Twitter at DKMFWTX. You can watch me retweet and occasionally talk about all combat sports, politics included.
That might be the biggest combat sport is politics. Of course, you can follow me at the Alliance blog on all social medias. We have hats like this for sale. We have, the phone just died. Camera just died. Awesome.
That's the best you've ever looked, Jay.
Fair enough.
Camera never dies on this show.
2 hours, guys. Come on, give me some credit. That was pretty good.
I go 2 hours all the time, Jay. I don't know why you have a problem going 2 hours. I do it all the time.
It was perfect. Yeah, right. It was perfect timing, Jay, because it was just as you were plugging your stuff.
Yeah. Well, things happen, but that's why we have backups, and hopefully that works. You guys get to see the backside of the studio there. But anyways, so you can check out the alliance-wrestling.com t-shirts. We've got hats also available on our website. Just check out the merch section on the website. Of course, we're also doing a giveaway where you can win a crown version of the NWA World Championship, the title that was defended from 1959 to 1973. And that title will be given to one lucky subscriber once we hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're getting awfully close. We're at 768, at the time of this podcast. So make sure you guys get back into it. Oh, whoa. Did you steal that from NWA Gold?
Heck no. I have my sources.
All right. That's the belt you could win. If you are so lucky, you could win that championship belt. And again, once we hit 1,000, that will be when we do the giveaway. We'll also give away some T-shirts, merchandise, and it's not just limited to North America. That contest is for worldwide. So again, you want to get in on that. And then I guess that's going to do it. You can join us again on Tuesday for the pre-party. We'll be back here Thursday nights. Until next time, guys. Did I miss something? No? Then we'll see you at the matches. Good night now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Alliance Blog Podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you won't miss any future episodes? We'd also like to remind you that we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube at the Alliance Blog. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Twitch at the Alliance Blog. Remember, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.